Welcome into another episode. I'm really excited to be joined today by one of the breakout players of the 2023-24 season, someone who has been a blast to watch this year as Stanford has really taken off and cemented where they have been throughout. I think people were wrong to doubt them at the beginning of the year, and that's Kiki Iriafen. Kiki, first and foremost, I really appreciate you making the time. Second of all, how's your day going?
Thank you for having me, Mark. My day's been good. We had early morning practice and lift, and then I had a bunch of classes, so definitely student athlete this morning.
Yeah, no, I feel that you're working in some kind of design engineering, correct?
Yes, I am. So a lot of my classes are like product design, mechanical engineering, like mixture. But it's a lot of fun. I get to be creative and then also very hands-on.
That's dope. What drove you into that?
Initially coming into Stanford, I wanted to do like mechanical engineering, and then I learned about design from this woman named Lisa Solomon, who's like really big at our design school, and she kind of like got me into design. I started taking a few classes, and one of my teammates, Brooke Dimitri, both of us are both doing design, so it's really nice to like collab and like work with people. So that I think that's one of the biggest things that I like about the major.
No doubt, that's awesome. Especially like you mentioned in terms of the student athlete part, I think um, every program is a little bit different, and I think especially when you talk about academics at Stanford, that is an entirely different animal. And then you talk about what Tara expects out of practice and what practice load is like. What was I know obviously as a junior now, what has the acclimation process like to finding that balance of how you handle that? Because it is a full-time job without a doubt.
Yes, definitely. I'd say like getting acclimated it wasn't easy. But I will say my high school was kind of like a mini Stanford. Like we had rigorous
Yeah, Harvard
academic.
Westlake's for real.
Yes, rigorous academics, great athletics. So definitely a baby Stanford. So I feel like academically, I felt pretty confident. We also have a lot of resources and like tutors and things like that. I feel like it was more so on the basketball side. The game is much faster paced. In high school, I was always the biggest on the court, but now I'm playing with women who are as big as me or even bigger. So it was getting adjusted to that, to the physicality. So I'd say the basketball part, I had to, kind of get a jump start on that. So it was really nice that we have like our summer ball workouts to for us to get like used to it before starting in the fall. But no, I think it's been a difficult journey, but it's been a great learning process for me since my freshman year till now.
That's awesome. One of my favorite things to ask people, especially from Stanford, I remember one of the first things I asked Haley last year was, "What was your first practice like at Stanford?" And what what kind of wake up call was that for you?
Okay, are we talking our first summer practice or first
We can
official?
do first summer and then first official.
Okay, first summer, I was so nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, like playing with these great women, like I don't even know like what I'm doing out here. But now that I look at it, our first practice was like 1 hour and it was only post. It was a post only practice. So
Yeah,
very low stakes, literally just drop step, make a layup, but I was so nervous. So in terms of like intensity, it wasn't too bad. It was just more so like a lot of the like jitters of like my first college workout. Then I'd say our first like official practice, I think because I've always heard like 3 hour practice, 3 hour practice. I was just like more so anticipating that.
yeah,
I think the biggest thing was you got to get in shape. With
yeah.
moving, Tar wants us to be like fast paced, like high energy. So I think the biggest thing is getting into shape, keeping up with the pace of the older girls, making sure you're vocal, you're talking. So it was a lot of huffing and puffing on the sidelines, but I just try to fake my way through it, and I'm here now. So
Yeah, no, exactly. I feel like surviving it's an award in and of itself to get through that. Yeah, sitting in on a couple practices, I've never seen a team scrimmage as much 5-on-5 full court
yeah,
as you guys do, which is huge and obviously getting you guys ready, but also that is a lot.
yes.
Um, when you talk about this season too, obviously, first and foremost, when I say this is your junior year, obviously you're an upperclassman now. What is that feeling like? Because it's got to be kind of wild.
Yeah, it's like surreal. I can't believe I'm a junior. I feel like time is going by so fast, but at the same time, I don't feel like a junior. I feel like I had like six seniors ahead of me,
Yeah.
like my freshman year, and like I'm still a baby, but I'm like now I'm an upperclassman. I'm someone that has to be leader for this team, someone that like my freshmen and underclassmen can look up to. So it's something that I hold a lot of pride in, but I'm still like, oh my gosh, like it's year three. So
Yeah, I feel like especially with how crazy the season is, it's hard to like really sit down and kind of think through that and like have that moment. Um, and especially with like how the season has started in Pac-12 play, where you guys are at right now. How are you feeling just in general with where the team's at and where you guys want to get to?
yeah, I feel really good. I think the biggest thing is a lot of us are having a lot of fun with each other. So it's really exciting to go out there and play. I think we give it our all every single time. Of course we not like to have those two losses, but again, they're learning opportunities. So It's also only January. We still have time before March. We'll continue to keep on improving. So I'm really happy with where we're at in terms of like, being together as a team. We're very tight knit. We have great chemistry, and that's only going to improve. Of course, on the court, we can like clean up some things, tighten some things up. But I trust my coaches in terms of like them getting us ready, our scout, things like that. A lot of us go into the gym and get extra shots up, so I feel good about March.
Yeah, especially with I mean, like I think people can like hear, yeah, we're going on the Colorado Utah road trip, but as I think USC and UCLA are both about to do that this weekend, can you explain for people what that is actually like in terms of how it feels on your body and like what the actual prep is? Because I've again, like I think for people who are like, if I mean Pasadena and just in general is like pretty close to sea level, like when you're out in Palo Alto, like you're not really that high up, and then going and making that trip, obviously it's the hours and you have a slight time change, but that's a lot.
Yeah, I would say that coupled in, like, especially for Colorado, they're so aggressive. Like, they're a fast-paced, high-energy
Yeah.
team. So it's like you're trying to catch your breath, but you're going to be running up and down the court because they are just moving at that like great fast pace. So I feel like prepping for the trip, we did everything we could. Like in practice, we were working hard. We were going super fast. Like Tara would like have the scout team not even take the ball out so that we're just going and going and going to help us prepare. But like you can only prepare so much. Like when we got there, I was like, oh, the altitude is nothing. But once you like start
Yeah.
getting in, even just the warm up, you can start to feel it. But I feel like the biggest thing is a mindset. You have to get your first win, and then from there, you'll be fine. Of course, the Colorado Utah schools have an edge on that, on the altitude and being adapted to that. But I think the biggest thing is just like a mindset thing. Like you're like, it's gonna happen. Just like, how do I push through this?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, get your look back when they come back to the farm for sure. Um, especially like talking about your season as a whole too, with where you're at. I think like obviously you were a starter last year for much of the season, and you've been productive for a while. But this season has been a huge jump up for you, going from like a good player to like playing like an All American.
Mhm.
I know just from reading, like you put a lot of work in the off season, but what was kind of like the inflection point for you after last season, and what made you, um, obviously, like I'm sure you've been a worker before then, but like what changed for you the most this off season?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things was my mindset. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a junior. Like this is the for me it was kind of like make or break point. Like I've already had 2 years in in college, and like I'm still developing, but I'm a junior now. So what is my excuse, kind of thing? So going home, I put in the same work that I did my first 2 years, but I think more intention with what I was doing. But then the biggest thing is just my confidence. I feel like my confidence has skyrocketed even prior to our season starting. I think my in the summer I was very confident in what I was doing. I knew that I could score. I knew I could play defense. So just having a lot of confidence in my game and like knowing the player that I am, and then also being okay with sometimes I'm not going to have great days. I think prior to that, if I didn't have a good practice, that was something that really weighed heavy on me. But now I try to just be like, okay, what else can I do? If I'm not scoring well, can I rebound more? Can I play better defense? So finding other ways to impact the game has been something that's been really beneficial for me this year.
Yeah, and one of the things that's been super fun in watching this year, is just like you talked about. I think the way that your game's expanded out, like your face-up game is amongst the best, and not just Pac-12 but the country. Especially like your jumper has been wet this year. I think you're shooting like 45, 46% from mid-range. And then in general, like what you can do off of that. Like there are very few bigs that can play against you with your size and quickness with the ball in your hands. Um, when you talk about like the way that you have played off that, because so much of your guys' offense is playing high low and being able to operate out of the high post like that. Was that like obviously you had that stuff last year, but like again, when you talk about intentionality, what was there maybe like one thing that you were most focused on improving in that area?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me was consistency, and I wanted to be very efficient. So for me, it was mainly with my low post moves this summer. Was like I want to make sure I'm consistent. Like I know when I'm making this move, it's going to go in 80% of the time. So working on my efficiency, and then from there, I was over the summer I was going against a lot of guys, and they were much taller than me. So I was like, okay, I can't really attack the basket like they're right there. So I was like, I got to shoot it more. So I was working on my shot a lot. I'm working on my three. It'll come this season. It's coming.
Yeah.
But I was working a lot on my mid range because I was like, these guys are bigger than me. I know I'm quick. How can I use I love the jab. So how can I like jab, get them away from me and then hit my shot? So
Yeah. Especially mentioning like the confidence aspect tied in with consistency. I feel like that is the hardest part for a player to grow into. I know for me, that was like my biggest thing is like finding consistency is like, woo, buddy. But um, what was maybe the biggest thing for you in finding consistency and that confidence together?
yeah, honestly, it's just a lot of reps. As simple as it sounds, like I literally would just stand and make like a million right-handed layups, a million left-handed layups to the point where I was so bored. But I think that really helped me. A lot of the times I think, sometimes I can go too fast. Tara talks about it all the time, like I rush a little bit. So being able to have like that mind muscle connection between like me making my layups so that I know when I'm in these fast paced games, I'm not rushing my layups. I'm able to make the same shot that I was making in the gym by myself. So
Yeah. I have to ask too, with going to the single leg sleeve this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you did single leg sleeve last year.
I didn't. I
What
didn't.
was the change up with that?
Okay, so I kind of wanted to do something new this year. I was like, it was kind of like a rebrand for me.
Yeah,
I was like, I wanted to switch up my style. I also love Asia Wilson. She's one of my favorite players. So definitely heavily inspired by Asia. But I was like, it just looks so sick. And there's something
it
about
does. Yeah,
one thing that my teammates and I talk about is like you can't play bad in a one leg sleeve. Like you have to just be like dominant. Like there's no like passiveness. You have to just be aggressive, dominant, and kind of just control the game when you have that one leg sleeve. So I feel like I try to like embody it. It's like, okay, I have the sleeve on, like my superhero cape, have the sleeve on, like it's time to go to work kind of thing. But I know I love it. So
no, I get that. It's the thing where it's like you throw it on for game, and you're like, yeah, okay, I'm ready. Like this is game time. And it's
exactly.
actually really funny you mention Asia too, because like I think you can see a lot of similarities, like especially when you talk about that high post move, and especially the way that you use your jab step and drive, and yeah, I can totally see the how she's played into your game for sure. Um, one of the other things I want to hit on with your game too, I feel like one of the things you've done really well this year is like just how quickly you read the court. Like I
Mhm.
think that you are just like so much more aggressive in how you get into your moves and the way that you're seeing things. Was that something that you like approached maybe in film work, or what was that aspect like for you?
Yeah, that's definitely a film thing. Again, I feel like in the past I've like rushed a lot and I kind of like make up my move before like reading the defense. So I think that's just maturity as well and just like increasing my IQ. So film work, just like reading the defense and trying to see like how are they going to play me before it even happens.
Hmm.
So I feel like that's something that I've really honed in on this year and just like kind of letting the game come to me as opposed to like me already deciding what moves I'm going to make.
That's actually really funny. Not to keep bringing it up, but because I did a story with Asia earlier this year and talking about what her development was like, and she mentioned that was one of the biggest things for her was like she was always trying to go to her counter before people had even done anything. She's like, "Oh, well, I'm going, I'm making a move before I even need to, and then I'm cutting myself off because nothing's even happened yet." So it's a huge part in like, especially like when you're playing, in the middle of the floor and getting comfortable getting in the rim. So that's cool. Um, yeah, especially mentioning Tara too. I think one of with Tara just about to pass the wins record, it's hard not to think about like all the cool stories around her. And I know like my favorite, I unfortunately didn't get to work into the story I did on Haley last year, but I circled it a lot around music because Haley loves her
Yeah.
music. She built everyone a Spotify playlist, and I made the mistake of asking Tara last year if she had a Spotify playlist from Haley, and she didn't know what Spotify was. So I was wondering if you have any kind of story that maybe sticks out the most for you with Tara and who she is
Yeah.
and what she embodies.
Yeah, I will say just going on this off on the Spotify thing, what's funny is I think she does know now because she's
Yeah,
always asking my teammates and I to make her a playlist, add songs, like she's trying to be up to date and be current. So she definitely knows what Spotify is now.
good.
Um, I think something that I really appreciate about Tara since my freshman year is like she was always able to like, kind of be one of the girls. And what I mean by that is like she was very willing to like, learn about the trends that we're doing. So like Tara and I, we would always like do like weird dances and like do TikTok trends. Even the other or in Colorado, like she put on my sunglasses and she started like shaking her hair and like she's very down to like, be one of us, which I think is huge given like the age gap that we have. And I think that's something that she has continued to improve on each and every year is just like, how can I be more relatable to my players? So I'd say like Tara and I, we just have like, I don't even like, it's like off the court definitely is giving friends. Like we're just like dancing, like, hey girl, like very like cool and casual. Definitely on the court, it's business. But again, I think just her ability and her willingness to try to relate to her players.
Yeah, it's funny because I had Erica McCall on here last year, and she's a friend of mine, and like she talked about how when she was kind of figuring out what she was doing in school and struggling a little bit with her major, like Tara would tutor her for like an entire semester. It wasn't just like a little bit, and I'm like thinking through that in my head. Like obviously every coach is different, but like it's hard to envision like a head coach taking the time to actually do that, and that's I think it's the little things like that that always stand out. Um, Is there like a phrase or saying from her that from practice that if nobody's been if somebody has not been in a Stanford practice before, what is maybe the thing that you would hear the most from Tara VanDerveer?
Oh, okay. It's always something about pace, like something about her pace, but like a phrase that she says, I think, at least to me, is like she's like, "Be big mama." She's like, "When you're in the paint, you're big mama." And of course, I'm not saying it in the same like inflection that she is, but she's so aggressive and passionate. She's
Yeah.
like, "Come on, Kiki, like you're big mama in there." So I feel like that's something that she's always said to the bigs, like, "Be big mama, like own that paint." So yeah.
I love that. It's I can't even picture Tara saying that, but I believe you. Um, Especially too, like you and Cam together have been arguably the best front court in the country, and getting to play alongside Cam, like I know, like just from being in the same, you guys practice against each other a lot.
Yeah.
So what has that been like for you the last couple of years? Obviously, you guys kind of crafting your game against one another,
Yeah.
and where you're at now, as you guys have both kind of grown into where you're at.
Yeah, I think coming in as a freshman, it was such I learned so much by having to guard her. I had to guard her every single day. I had to play against her every single day. She's like one of the best shot blockers in the country. So I feel like that's also another reason why I've been able to adapt to my jump shot, my face up game. But I've learned so much playing against her for the past 2 years, and now this year we get to play with each other a little bit more. We're very competitive, so whenever we're guarding each other, like giving our all. I think this year it's so nice to play with one another because we're able to bounce off of each other, as you kind of mentioned. And I think in games, like I'm really out there and I'm just like playing freely because I'm like, I have Cameron next to me. Like she's another great post player. Like teams are gonna have to pick, am I guarding Cameron or am I guarding Kiki? And like I feel like we're just able to bounce off of each other in that sense. And then another thing is she's like one of my biggest motivators. She's always like pouring into me, always speaking life over me and just like saying how much she's like proud of me and how much she believes in me. She knows every shot that I'm taking is gonna go in, even if it's not. So I think just having like an upperclassman, an All-American, such a great player, like speaking to you in that way is like just honestly beneficial for my overall game as well.
Yeah. There are like not a lot of people who can protect the rim like she can at any
Yeah.
stage. What is the worst she's ever blocked your shot before?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, there's too many memories to, like, even talk about, but I'm pretty sure it's probably, like, my freshman year, and that's because I don't know her that well yet, so I'm like, "Okay." Like, I've never gone against a big like that. So
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, just going to the basket," and I'm pretty sure it hit me in the face, like,
Oh no.
smack, smack, and another thing that Tara says is, like, you can taste the leather in your teeth, like, meaning, like, you got blocked so bad, like, the basketball,
Yeah.
like, everything, so it's probably my freshman year, she's got me a few times, she still gets me now, but I'd say freshman year because I didn't really know how to read her yet, so
Yeah. No, I believe it. I It's funny too because I feel like especially in games, she has a tendency to get some of the leather in the face
yeah.
blocks on people. Um, yeah, no, I can totally see that. Backtracking a little bit too, in terms of just talking about you getting to Stanford.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that you really wanted to be coached hard, and I feel like that is, everybody has their own journey, but that's definitely different from a lot of people. So, what made you know that that's what you wanted going to the next level?
Yeah, well, that's all I knew growing up. My high school coach, my club coach, they've always been hard on me and like in a way that's like, you know what? I'm like, I'm gonna prove my coach wrong. Like I'm gonna shut him or her up and I'm gonna show you like, no, I can do this. So it's kind of like approving my coach, like, no, what you said is incorrect kind of thing. And I think Tard like knows that too. Like she knows what to say to me too, to be like, get me like riled up. Like I feel like not me playing angry, but sometimes when I'm more riled up, I'm like more aggressive, more dominant. So
Yeah,
Tara knows like what buttons to press with me as well. So I think that's something that I'm really grateful that I have now. I've never been a player that's like love to be coddled or like, I don't need a ton of encouragement. So I just love that I'm able to, my coach is able to know what buttons to press to help me get to the level I need to be at.
yeah. When did you first know that you were going to go to Stanford?
Ooh. So I would say the end of my sophomore year, so playing club season before my junior year, that's when I played in I want to say Indiana and Stanford came and saw me. So then I started talking to them and I come from a Nigerian household, so like academics are huge. So,
Mhm.
Stanford's kind of like a mini Harvard Westlake, so it was kind of like, a stepping stone. Stanford has great academics, great athletics. So I kind of always was like, okay, Stanford. And then it wasn't until before my senior year that I officially committed to come to Stanford. And I
Okay.
never got an official visits because of COVID.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff was like talking to girls on Instagram, or I was able to do an unofficial visit. So like I was able to see the campus a little bit, but a lot of it was just FaceTimes and like text messages.
Yeah. Especially when you talk about like how that impacts your recruiting, like what was that like having to handle like obviously I mean COVID, I think part of what's so wild about it is like 10 years from now there's just gonna be a lot of people who have like no idea how to even
Um,
relate to that. But like what was that like for you in terms of how it affected your recruiting and the way that you were able to handle that?
Yeah, luckily for me, I had already narrowed like my top 5 prior to like the pandemic starting. So I was only really talking to a core group of people, which made it really, really easy. I think it was difficult because I never got official visits. So I was only able to go to like the California schools, and I didn't get to see any of the Midwest or East Coast schools. So I did like virtual official visits, but that's nothing like being at the real campus. But I think, I made do with what it was. I'm really grateful that I did have that narrow list because I think I would have been overwhelmed if I was talking to a lot of
Sure.
schools at that time.
Yeah, it's so interesting talking to anybody because especially like, there are some kids who went like kind of under recruited because of just the way that like AAU worked, and there were a couple states that just didn't have AAU for a year, and like it's always wild to think about, especially with the way like people develop. Like I think I do a lot of stuff on the scouting side, and I just whenever I talk to people, I'm like, hey man, I just have no idea how to track what does or doesn't happen with somebody who had to deal with that because it's just there's not a precedent for it.
Yeah.
Um, but especially too, when you talk about like looking at Stanford as a whole and backtracking, you were a pretty late starter with basketball. If I read correctly, I believe you didn't start till eighth grade. So
Yes.
what was the impetus behind finally getting into basketball, and what kind of made you fall in love with it?
Yeah, so I've always been like the tallest in my classes. So like my parents had me around basketball a little bit when I was younger, like, but nothing organized until like the end of 7th grade, early 8th grade. And it was really because of my height. And I really didn't like basketball because I was only playing with boys. So I was like, ew, this is gross. This sucks. So it wasn't until I joined my first like all girls team in 8th grade, a club team, and I was like, and these are the girls that I was also going to go to school with in high school. So I feel like the fact that I was able to make like lasting friendships and connections is honestly what drew me to going back to practice and actually enjoying it. And then from there, I was like, whoa, like I actually like basketball. I wasn't really good at the beginning either, but I was like, I get to hang out with my friends and like, okay, I'll play basketball so I can see my friends kind of thing. And then it just blossomed into something that I was like, no, I actually love basketball. I love that I'm able to be super aggressive on the court, and then when I leave I can be like super girly. So like kind of having that duality of like I'm on the court, I'm giving it my all, and then go back to being me after the game. So
No, I love that. I think that's the best part about for me any sport is like I don't know. I feel like so often fans or just people in general can like look at somebody's on court persona and be like, oh, well, that's how they are. I'm like, dude, most players I know are absolutely nothing like they are on court,
yeah, yeah,
and I think that's part of the awesome part. Like you kind of just get to be whoever when you're out there, and it's dope. Um, especially like looking ahead where you guys are at right now, like we talked about. Um, what really drives you? Like what are the things that you really want to accomplish this year? What things you want to accomplish moving forward, and kind of what instills that in you every day?
yeah. I want to win. Like I want to win a Pac-12 championship. I won it in the my freshman year. We tied for like regular season last year, but like I want to be someone that can really say like I helped my teammates. I was really involved in like us getting this win. And then of course I want to win a national championship. We only have 2 players that have won it, Cameron and Hannah. So a lot of us are really hungry for that. We don't know what it feels like. So we all want to win a natty. And then I think in terms of like me, like outside of that, I would love to play professionally. I would love to play for the country. Just a lot of big aspirations, but just honing in on this season is definitely winning Pac-12 tournament and winning the national championship.
For sure. And what kind of instills in you every single day to keep getting better like that? Because obviously you've been putting in the work. So yeah, what keeps you going every day, and what wakes you up?
Yeah, I'd say definitely my family. I want to make my family super proud. I'm the oldest. I'm also like the oldest grandchild, so I have a lot
Okay, that's
of
a lot of pressure. Yeah,
Yeah, but good pressure,
yeah,
My family doesn't ever put any pressure on me. I think a lot of it is just like putting it on myself. But I want to make all my cousins, my grandparents, my family proud. And then like I had a injury earlier in the season, in the preseason. So sitting out, you're like, oh my gosh, like it really puts it into perspective, and you're like, no, I want to be on that floor. So I was like, I didn't like how I felt when I was on the sideline. So kind of like every time I'm going on the court, trying to give it my all so that we can win the Natty and win the Pac-12 tournament.
Definitely. And then I think the last thing I want to close up on, just in terms of like maybe something you're most proud of yourself from this season. Is there like a moment as an individual and as a team?
I'd say my fight, you know, playing there's not a specific moment, but I can say like this season, like I really haven't given up. Even
Yeah.
in games like for instance the Gonzaga game. It was pretty much over at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And there was spurts of like maybe we could, but even when it got to a point where we could not win the game, I was still like, no guys, we can win this game. Like we will win this game. Like we got it. There's 30 seconds left and we're down like, I don't know, 15. I'm like, we got it. Like we just need one basket, one stop. So I feel like my fight, you know, playing against really great post players, like it's very physical down there. But like I like that. Like I love the physicality. So I'd say just a lot more fight for me this year and like just giving my all so that my teammates and I can win a game.
And then as a team, what do you think you're most proud of?
I think that we're having fun. Like we're having a lot of fun. I think everybody's been given opportunities to help contribute and everybody's winning and I think that's what makes it fun as well. But I think we just really enjoy each other's company. We love playing out there together. So just keeping the fun present and just also remaining present every single day.
No, I like that. I think it's easy to lose that. I think people will be surprised how many teams don't always have fun, even
Yeah.
if they're really good. But Kiki, I really appreciate your time. It was dope getting to know you. I'm excited to you guys have a big slate coming up this weekend. It feels like I mean, I can say that, but it's every single game in the Pac-12 is a big game. This is like
Pac-12, baby.
it's the nuttiest year ever in terms of Pac-12 stuff. Is there anything you want to shout out or plug before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you to all my support systems, Coach Millie, my parents, my high school coaches, Coach Hurley, my club coaches, just everybody that has poured so much into me and has stayed with me through this grind of college basketball. So I love you all. Thank you.
I love that. To everyone listening, thank you for listening. And most importantly, have a great rest of your day.